BLS, Strategic Data Manipulation, and the Dismissal of Erika McEntarfer. For decades, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has projected the image of neutral, apolitical expertise, a pillar of trust for the American public, media, and markets. Yet a critical analysis of its history and institutional behavior reveals a consistent, methodical pattern. The BLS is less a neutral arbiter of truth than a bureaucratic stronghold, structurally aligned with the interests of the permanent, legacy regime in Washington. This regime, composed of unelected officials, agency staffers, think tanks, and their media partners, frequently acts to preserve its own power and to resist disruption, regardless of which party controls the White House. The key to understanding the current controversy, including President Trump's 2025 firing of Erika McEntarfer, is recognizing that the administrative state does not merely serve the president, it protects its own continuity. When the elected president is an outsider, someone seen as hostile to the system, as Trump has been, this machinery of neutral expertise becomes a tool of containment, delay, and information warfare. Historical pattern confirms this. In 2012, with Obama seeking re-election, the BLS announced a timely drop in unemployment, splashed across the news just in time to benefit the incumbent. After the election, numbers were quietly revised. In 2016, Hillary Clinton's campaign benefited from glowing pre-election employment reports, with inconvenient realities, stagnant wages, labor force dropout, hidden in the data's background noise and only acknowledged after the political moment had passed. In 2020, the BLS underreported the speed and scale of job recovery as Trump's administration reopened the economy, with upward revisions and positive news deferred until after the election, when it no longer mattered. In 2022, during the Biden midterms, the BLS front-loaded strong jobs data that was later revised, down by over 1 million jobs. Again, only after it served its campaign function. This pattern has been steady, regardless of the face in the Oval Office. The consistent feature is that establishment interests, legacy party insiders, career bureaucrats, and their networked media allies receive favorable treatment, while disruptive outsiders face institutional sabotage through timing, omission, and framing. By 2024 and 2025, with Trump returned to power, the underlying bureaucratic motive became even more transparent. Erika McEntarfer, a Biden-era appointee confirmed with bipartisan support, remained at the helm of the BLS. Rather than pivot to serve the new president's agenda, the agency continued its established playbook. Throughout Trump's second term, the BLS downplayed or delayed reporting on the most robust aspects of the post-pandemic economic boom: manufacturing growth, domestic reshoring, and job creation driven by aggressive tariff policies. These trends, while visible to data specialists, were omitted from headline numbers and never highlighted in mainstream coverage. Instead, monthly reports emphasized any available sign of economic weakness, building a negative narrative, even as real indicators improved. The strategic significance of this institutional inertia was laid bare in 2 key episodes. First, in November 2024, just 10 days after the national election, the BLS released a downward revision of over 818,000 jobs from pre-election counts. This did not merely correct an error, it recast the economic storyline that voters had relied on. Too late to change any minds or votes. The new data painted Trump's recovery as weaker than previously reported, but only after the opportunity to influence public perception had safely passed. Second, in mid-2025, at a time when the US was reaping the gains of reshoring and a manufacturing surge, the BLS again released a weak jobs report, strategically ignoring or burying positive leading indicators. This allowed hostile media, political opposition, and establishment actors to reset the national narrative, undercutting Trump's legitimacy and forcing him into a defensive posture. The function of these releases is not simply informational. They are behavioral tools, shaping market sentiment, business decisions, and ultimately the democratic process itself. Headline-grabbing bad news triggers market caution and slows private investment, compounding real economic effects. The masses, conditioned by a generation of media framing, absorb these cues as reality, while positive news, if acknowledged at all, arrives late and buried, serving no practical purpose. This sequence exposes the true loyalty of the modern bureaucratic state. It does not serve the elected president, especially not one who challenges its norms and power structures. Instead, it acts as a guardian of regime continuity, what might be called the permanent establishment. The pattern is especially pronounced when a figure like Trump, whose election threatens the status quo, is in office. In such cases, the default setting of these institutions is resistance, not compliance. McEntarfer's role fits this model perfectly. There is no need for an explicit conspiracy or direct political instructions. Bureaucratic culture, career incentives, and social networks all reward behavior that protects regime interests and punishes deviations. Good news that might vindicate the outsider is delayed or omitted. Bad news, no matter how provisional, is amplified at maximum impact. The timing of revisions, post-election corrections, buried positive trends, and high-profile bad reports during critical policy windows demonstrates strategic intent. The pattern is not random and cannot be explained as statistical noise. It is, by all forensic standards, a recurring modus operandi. The significance of Trump's firing of McEntarfer in June 2025 is thus not a matter of personal animus or a reaction to a single data release. It is the logical outcome of a broader recognition. The administrative apparatus remains a force of narrative control and policy sabotage, with the ability to damage, delay, or dilute any reformist or populist agenda. The BLS under McEntarfer acted not as a neutral statistician, but as a node in this machinery, delaying good news, exaggerating negatives, and using the timing of revisions to shape national perception. This behavior, repeated over cycles and decades, always leans in the direction of the legacy regime and the Democratic Party, not because every bureaucrat is a partisan, but because the institutional incentive structure rewards preservation of the status quo. The cost of this manipulation is profound. Each cycle of delayed truth and timed pessimism erodes trust, not only in government, but in the very possibility of objective reality. Democracy, in any meaningful sense, depends on the timely and accurate flow of information. When that information is filtered, delayed, or weaponized for regime benefit, the electorate is reduced to little more than an audience for a scripted drama, one whose ending is foreordained by those controlling the data. This is not an aberration, nor is it accidental. It is a rational survival strategy for a regime that senses its own vulnerability to real change. The BLS's behavior across administrations, especially in the era of Trump, should be understood as the clearest signal yet that the administrative state is a political actor in its own right, using the tools of expertise and neutrality as a cover for maintaining power. Until these mechanisms are exposed and dismantled, any talk of reform or renewal will be fighting against a rigged reality, one whose gatekeepers are unelected, unaccountable, and always ready to delay the truth until it no longer matters.